Alright, so last couple of videos that I put out, I've been talking about DCP files and 24 frames per second and showing films in theaters, and you know, there have been so many comments and opinions and I've gotten so much help, and it's been pretty incredible to see the community that YouTube can bring you. I've met some new people who I've kind of become friendly with, and I'm sure I'll continue to be in contact with them, and it's been pretty special. But the other thing that's happened is that I noticed that I get a lot of comments that are with a lot of conviction. You know, like people tell me, this is what you need to do. Like, this is your answer. Here's what's going to solve your problem. And sometimes, even though I don't really comment back in this way, I look at that and I think, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Like, you know, a lot of people say, you know, if a festival likes your film or whatever, they're going to accept you no matter what. It doesn't matter if you have a DCP or not. And the thing is, I really appreciate that sentiment, but that's not the way it works. Like, if they're showing their films in a particular theater and that theater requires a certain format, then you have to have a DCP if that's what they require. Like, that's it. You know, like, there's no other way around that. And so if you want to participate in, like, the Tribeca Film Festival, for example, you got to have a DCP. Otherwise, if they accept you, you're not going to be able to be in it, and they're just going to give that slot to somebody else who has the budget and who prepared properly and who has a DCP, a digital cinema package. So the other thing that this makes me think about is that I am about to start a new project. Like, I just finished a feature film. And the way I work, and I've been an artist for a very long time, the minute I finish a project, which generally takes 5 or 6 years of my life, I'm on to another project immediately, because I just can't sit around and do nothing, and I'm not really good with the progression of something after it's finished. I mean, I know that I have to honor it more, and I have to deal more with promotion and marketing and stuff like that. I'm getting better at it, but I have to be on to a new project. So I'm going to do another film, and one thing I realize is that I have to get another camera because, well, let me back up a little bit. I think I have to get another camera. I'm not sure yet, because I have the Panasonic S5. That's this camera right now. I'm shooting with a Minolta 28mm f2.8. It's a vintage lens. It's all manual. I'm shooting at f8 for anybody who cares. I'm out here in Poughkeepsie, New York. That's the pedestrian bridge behind me. So anyway, I digress. I think I have to get a new camera because to make a proper DCP without complications, you have to shoot at 24 frames per second. That's just the way it is. Like, that's how it works. And of course, most mirrorless cameras don't do that. It shoots at 23.976 or 23.98 to round it off. And so that's a problem. You know, every time I speak to anybody about a DCP, they're like, oh, you know, it's like so complicated. And it is complicated, especially if it's a feature and you have long monologues, and you know, you have to make sure that your dialogue stays in sync with the video. And so I'm like, I'm afraid to move forward and do another project with this camera, even though I'm in love with this camera. Like, I love the way it looks. I love everything about it. You know, I don't generally get attached to technology or anything like that. I just look at cameras and lenses and all this stuff as tools. But my equipment happens to hold a little bit different kind of meaning to me, because my lenses were my father's lenses. I found them in a camera bag after he died. I adapted them to my cameras, and this camera is my first full-frame camera that I shot. This is the first film that I shot on a camera. I shot a feature film on a phone, and then I used a Sony a6400 for quite a while. But this is the camera I used to shoot my last film, or my current film that I just finished a couple of days ago. And I just love the way this camera looks. And I tend to not use autofocus. Like, obviously I'm not using it now because it's a manual lens. And actually the autofocus is pretty good on this camera, but you know, it's not like follow you everywhere, and it's not amazing. It's good if you're doing a YouTube video, if you're just sitting in one place. It's perfectly fine. But I love this camera mainly because of the way it looks and the usability, the ergonomics, how easy it is to set up, and also how much it has. Like, it's been a great camera that I have been growing with, and I can continue to grow with it because it's got like a lot of video assist features that, you know, cinema cameras have, like proper cinema cameras, like ARRI Alexas and Reds. Like, it's got those kind of cinema assist features. And so I've been able to learn using waveforms, and, you know, it's got unbelievable manual focus assist functions, and it's just a great camera. Color science is amazing. Vlog is beautiful. I shoot everything in Vlog. I've learned how to color pretty well with this camera. So why would I want to upgrade? Well, the one thing this camera has anamorphic support, which is amazing. It's kind of sort of got open gate. I mean, not really, but I can shoot 3x2 in this camera if I'm shooting anamorphic, which gives me the entire, you know, vertical part of the screen, and pretty much the whole horizontal part too. So it's kind of sort of open gate, but it doesn't shoot 24 frames per second. It only shoots 23.98, and that's a problem for me. And, you know, personally, I think you should only upgrade your camera if what you have cannot fulfill the task that you're trying to accomplish. And so that's what I'm pretty sure is happening here. Now, I'm not giving up on the DCP with this camera, and I'm still investigating, and I still have a lot of calls out to people who I really want to connect with, like people who make DCPs for a living. You know, because everybody's saying, just do it in DaVinci Resolve, like just work on it, you'll get, like, you know, first of all, I'm learning you really should make a DCP for every individual theater, because every theater has different requirements. Their speakers are set up differently, they have a different size screen, they're scope screens or flat screens or, you know, IMAX. Like, it's so complicated. You know, it's complicated enough to not have to deal with your frames per second and making sure everything is in sync. And so, you know, do I need to upgrade my camera? I mean, this camera gives me, like, I can make a film that looks like it could be on HBO or Netflix or Showtime or Starz Network or whatever. You know, the image quality is that good, and actually that's the case for most modern cameras. You know, you could get that kind of image out of pretty much any camera if you know about lighting and composition and white balance and all the rest. Like, any camera that could shoot good 1080, certainly 4K, is amazing. And, you know, do you, like most people, do you really need to upgrade to a 6K camera or an 8K? Like, come on. Like, unless you're shooting for a company like Nike or somebody like that who is absolutely saying, you need to shoot this in 6K or 8K. Like, who's doing that? Who's delivering in that kind of format? So I don't even feel like I need to upgrade to a Panasonic S5 II or a 2X. You know, even though those cameras do shoot 24 frames per second. And that would make sense to me, right? But if I'm going to change cameras, if I am going to upgrade, if I'm going to abandon my S5, my beloved S5 that has served me so well and has taught me so much, and the camera that I've done so much great work with and made a feature-length film that, you know, I don't want to sound like an arrogant asshole, but it's pretty damn good. It looks beautiful. And the score, by the way, is amazing, and I had nothing to do with that. But, man, am I going to abandon this camera? What would be the reason? Well, one reason would be I need to shoot 24 frames per second. And the other reason is I have seen moire a couple of times with this camera. You know, that shimmering kind of thing you see on the side of buildings or on clothes sometimes. I have seen that a couple of times with this camera. And so if I upgrade, I'm going to upgrade to a Panasonic S1H, which is like a 5-year-old camera. But it's got an optical low-pass filter, which pretty much eliminates moire. I mean, not completely, not 100%, it's not guaranteed, but it's much better than what I have. But the image quality is not going to be much better. It's just going to help me to have one less thing to think about. If I'm doing a project for somebody who's paying me and I can't reshoot, then I'm a little bit more confident that I'm not going to have moire in my shot and the shot is ruined. That's a big deal for me. So I'm on the hunt looking for a used S1H, but I'm really torn because I come from a place where I don't think I should have to upgrade, and I'm kind of pissed off about it. You know, like, just because of a DCP, like, I'm also thinking about how often am I going to show my films in a theater, you know? Like I could license a film at Netflix or HBO or something like that, and you know, all I have to do is deliver ProRes, you know. Now, it would help if I had a Netflix approved camera, and S1H is Netflix approved, but you know, that's not really that important. Like they will accept a great film if you didn't shoot it with a Netflix camera. That's more for cameras that they're funding, that they're paying for their personal Netflix production. And of course, it doesn't hurt if you have a Netflix approved camera, okay? I'll say that. But it doesn't really matter that much. So an S1H checks all the boxes. It's Netflix approved, shoots 24 frames per second. It's got an optical low pass filter. I can get it for less than $2,000 now. It was a, you know, $4,500 camera, I think, when it came out. I mean, I saw one sell recently for $910 on eBay. I mean, I can get one for close to $1,000. $1,000 for an S1H, that's crazy. Crazy. It's like this camera on steroids, a little bit heavier than this camera. That's an advantage to a lot of people. To me, I like having a light camera. And you know, the other thing is, you know, I feel like YouTubers are, first of all, I'm a huge fan of YouTube. I've learned pretty much everything I know about filmmaking from YouTube and then experience. But YouTubers lie a lot. You know, like and I don't mean lie in a malicious kind of way, but they don't tell the whole story, put it that way. Like they don't tell you real life, like they say it's got so many stops of IBIS or dynamic range or whatever. But you know, because I was shooting with a Sony a6400 for a long time, I can get gimbal-like shots with that camera, and that camera has no stabilization and it's light as a feather. But if you learn how to stabilize your body, you know, put your arms on something, your whole body on something, lean against something, you know, really move slowly and with intention, don't breathe, you know, like be zen about it, you know what I mean? Like really get your spiritual self together and become one with your camera. You can get great shots with a Sony a6400 and certainly with this camera with the Panasonic S5. You know, I didn't use a gimbal once on my feature film. You'll think I did. And you know, I didn't even use the stabilization in DaVinci Resolve. I just took these shots and did them until I got it the way I wanted it to look. I mean, I'm somebody who likes that organic kind of handheld look, but I don't like that crazy, you know, camera shake that looks unprofessional. There's like a fine line between that and something that just looks natural. So what I'm saying is that this camera provides me with pretty much everything that I want. You know, great image quality, great stability, great dynamic range, all these assist features, you know, it like, you know, and at the end of the day, all I really care about is how it looks at the end, you know. And the fact that it's full frame is great for me too, because I shoot a lot in the dark, in low light, you know, at night. I really love that. And so, you know, full frame gives me an advantage. You know, as far as the bokeh, I don't really care about that as much, because I personally feel like I can get the same bokeh out of APS-C or Micro Four Thirds or any other camera just by positioning yourself in front of the lens, choosing the right lens. That's like for YouTubers, you know, like, you know, you want to examine the bokeh, you want to examine the blurriness of your shot, knock yourself out. That has nothing to do with storytelling. But certain specifications that are going to keep you from being included in things that you want to be a part of, that's real. That's real. So, you know, YouTubers tell us the specs and what a camera could do and all the possibilities and everything that you want to know about the camera. They read you the spec sheet, and literally a lot of them are just reading you the spec sheet. Like they have, you know, one of those things that, I forget what it's called, I'm having a brain fart right now, but the thing that you could read on your screen as it goes by. And you know, I don't know what it's called right now because I would never use one, because I'm a theater artist and I memorize everything that I do. And doing these videos, I'm just speaking off the cuff, like off the top of my head. But you know, YouTubers tell you what the camera is capable of, which is a great thing. It's a great thing. But it doesn't, they don't really talk to you about a real life scenario, like making a film. You know, doing it, the fact that any camera that they show you can serve you well. If you get it and get used to it and learn the quirks and the little imperfections and the kind of weird things about it, and learn the strengths and the weaknesses and move according to that. Because any modern camera is going to serve you well. So, you know, that's why a YouTuber will, you know, review the Sony, you know, FX30 one week, and then Canon, you know, R5C the next week, and, you know, Fuji XH2S the next week, and a Panasonic S5 2X, and they're all like amazing cameras, and they're all great, and you should buy every one of them. They're all the same. They're all basically the same. You can do the exact same thing with every one of those cameras. You know that. You know this. So, you know, just upgrading your camera because, you know, you're bored or you're tired of your camera. Did you make a feature film? Are you making short films? Have you done a documentary? Are you making real work? Or is it a hobby at the highest level, which is, you know, in my opinion, equivalent to being a professional in many, many cases? Don't just upgrade your camera because you're bored. I mean, unless you're just all about the tech. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that either. If that's what you're about, then that's fine. Do that. But if you're about the story, if you're about the final image, if you're about what it looks like, the whole craft, including the lighting, the composition, the story, the, you know, the conflict, the resolution, the denouement, the exposition, all of it. If you're into the whole thing, sound. I mean, I'm using a purple Panda lavalier mic with a little, where is it? My Zoom H1N recorder, which is broken, by the way. I mean, I get incredibly professional sound from this setup. So, you got it. I'm the one who's in the conundrum right now. I don't know what to do because I don't want to upgrade my camera, but I might have to upgrade my camera. And so I'm waiting on this DCP thing because, you know, in my case, I'm making films that I want theatrical releases. I want to do screenings. Like I'm going to screen my film in the IFC Center in Manhattan on West 4th Street down on 6th Avenue. It's an independent theater, and they show independent films, art films, and they have screening rooms. But they require a DCP, at least in the main room. Now, I have a call out to them. I'm not sure they require a DCP in all the rooms. So, if I want to be a part of, say, Tribeca, and that's a big goal of mine now, I know it's a long shot. I don't have representation. I don't have, you know, a big team behind me. I don't have money. I don't have, you know, all the noise, but I have good work. And I know that my work is worthy of Tribeca. So I'm trying to get into Tribeca. And if I get in, and I'm not saying I will, but if I do, and you never know, if I don't have a DCP, I'm screwed. Now, how stupid would that be for me to ever do another film with this camera? If the case is that I can't make a DCP with this camera, that this would be a huge compromise. How stupid would I be? I shouldn't do that. And so, for me, in my case, once I get confirmation and a real true understanding of the DCP capabilities with this camera, if I can do it, and it could be at the highest level, I'm not going to upgrade this camera. But if it's a compromise, if it's still up for grabs, if people are going, it could be done, you know, but I need somebody to say, yo, no problem. Absolutely, I can make you a DCP, could play in any theater anywhere. 23.98, no problem, don't worry about it. Then I'm not going to upgrade the camera because I love this camera. And in fact, I'll probably buy a second S5 because to me, this camera stands with any camera in terms of image quality and capability. Now, obviously, it's not a cinema camera where I could be on set and connect with, you know, a focus puller and, you know, everybody around me. Like, no, it doesn't have connections. It's not an FX3. It's not an ARRI Alexa. It's not an FX9 or an FX6. It's not any of that. But for me, a solo shooter and somebody doing my own projects, I can't do better than this. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, that was on my mind today. I wanted to talk about upgrading your camera, and you know, perhaps some of this would help you in considering whether or not you should upgrade what you have, you know, because there are times where you absolutely should upgrade your camera without question. Like, you shouldn't even think about it. Don't even waste your time because you got stories to tell and you got things to do. But there are other times where you really should just stop and think about it for a second and think, like, would I be better served to get some better lights or, you know, better sound equipment, or, you know, a gimbal if you work that way, a better tripod, you know, maybe I can, you know, use that money to get some running shoes or pay my rent, or, you know, like, you don't have to upgrade just because a new camera just came out and you're like, whoa. I remember when the FX30 came out, people were like going crazy. Like everybody was buying that camera no matter what. No matter what. And it's a great camera. But then the A6700 came out and all of a sudden it was a question, which is better, you know? I mean, there are very few cameras that just stand the test of time. You know, that people just don't feel like they have to upgrade. Like the FX30, I think is one camera where people are hard pressed to upgrade from that unless they need a bigger cinema camera. But the FX30 is one that, how are you going to beat that camera, you know? Unless you need, and I don't even know if it has an optical low pass filter, but pretty much has everything you need, including the autofocus. And I think the only thing that sets this Panasonic S5 apart from the Sony FX3 is the autofocus. And you know, I guess the connections and things like that, but image quality and capability, being able to shoot anamorphic, video assist features, etc., color science, this camera is just as good as an FX3. So before you upgrade, think about it, but understand that sometimes upgrade, don't waste your time, don't be afraid. Just do it, because these are just tools. Don't get attached to your camera. Be attached to it while you're using it. But then if it holds you back, then understand that you got to let it go. And the next camera that you get, you're going to fall in love with that too, because you're going to learn it in the same way. You're going to immerse yourself in it. You're going to completely like make that camera a part of your body. You're going to have this spiritual connection with it. It is just a tool like your eyes, helping you to tell stories, and that's what it's about. So thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. I just got to 600 subscribers fast from 500. I can't believe it. So thank you so much. I so greatly appreciate that. And I'll see you again on the next video. Thank you. Have a good day.